We shouldn't underestimate just how huge and significant Charlie Kirk's assassination is to MAGA. He is an authentic MAGA martyr who means an enormous amount to the MAGA faithful, the people who voted for Donald Trump.
Now, a public service memorial and funeral for conservative activist Charlie Kirk is happening today in Arizona. Later today, we should say, Donald Trump spoke about Charlie Kirk's death during his press conference with Keir Starmer in the UK.
Just last week, a great American, Charlie Kirk, was heinously assassinated for speaking his mind. He was a great young man, incredible future. Some people said he might be president someday. I told him, I said, Charlie, I think you have a good shot someday at being president. And he just wanted to take care of youth. He loved youth. I've never seen anybody relate to youth like Charlie, and they related to him, and they're devastated.
Well, the president and other American political figures are heading there to speak at a service where heightened security is expected. Let's speak to Sarah Baxter, director of the Marie Colvin Center for International Reporting. Sarah, welcome back.
Yeah, hello there.
What do we know about this memorial service in Arizona? It seems like it's not a ticketed event. People just sign up for it and show up. Are we expecting huge crowds?
Absolutely huge crowds, and that's very much in keeping with Donald Trump's rallies as well. You could just turn up for them. And this stadium for the Cardinals, the football team in Arizona, American football, I should say, seats 100,000 people. And there's a facility for more streaming outside as well. So I think it's going to be enormous. I think Charlie Kirk ran a very good organization, Turning Point USA, in terms of outreach. So I think you'll see a lot of young people there, but the older MAGA crowd will also be there to pay tribute. We shouldn't underestimate just how huge and significant Charlie Kirk's assassination is to MAGA. He is an authentic MAGA martyr who means an enormous amount to the MAGA faithful, the people who voted for Donald Trump. He played a key part in Donald Trump's victory, mobilizing young people, which we know was very effective and one of the reasons why Trump is now in the White House. But it's more than that. He's become a kind of spiritual leader. There are lots of memes of him embracing Jesus, carrying on his good work like that, and comparisons to Martin Luther King. Now, I know that sounds preposterous to followers of Martin Luther King who admire the civil rights movement so much. But in fact, if you think about it, the assassination of Martin Luther King and the two Kennedy brothers really defined that era of the 1960s. And Donald Trump was nearly assassinated, and Charlie Kirk was. And these are very signal events, epoch-defining events for MAGA.
Sarah, are we expecting the president to speak? Are we also expecting J.D. Vance to say something? He took over Charlie Kirk's podcast for one special episode from the White House. Will we be expecting speeches from both?
Yes, we are. Absolutely. We're expecting speeches from an awful lot of people. I mean, the doors open 11 o'clock in Arizona time. I think that's 2 p.m. New York time, and evening, maybe 7 in the UK, but that it's deliberately timed so that as many people all over the various seaboards of America can tune in, and it's already advertised so many MAGA stars. So lots of members of the cabinet will be there. Not just Trump, Vance, but Marco Rubio and Kristi Noem and other other people like that. It's going to have podcasters and broadcasters there because Charlie Kirk was very much part of that broadcaster world that also influenced so many people. So there are going to be actually quite a lot of accomplished speakers there one way or another, because they're going to be, the broadcasting, the podcasting community will come together, and the entire Trump cabinet, and at the apex, of course, will be Donald Trump delivering his tribute to Charlie Kirk's memory.
And I can imagine, Sarah, this is going to be a huge security operation. People are saying, oh, well, the stadium's actually a closed stadium. There's got a roof on it, so that's all one thing they don't have to worry about. But how are they going to handle that mass of people where again, we need to repeat, this is not a ticketed event. You just send an email and put yourself down on a list. I remember visiting Arizona not that long ago. Arizona is an open carry state. There are guns everywhere. How are they going to make sure that its security is as tight as possible with all these hugely important people in one stadium?
Well, it will have airport-style security everywhere, as well as snipers, no doubt, and Secret Service people everywhere. Kirk, I beg your pardon, Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk, has just given a rather moving interview, and she said that she had been urging her husband to think about wearing a bulletproof vest and having more security. And he had apparently said to her, it hasn't come to that yet. He didn't want to do that. He liked being just very, he was a big free speech warrior in terms of his own style of presentation. He would debate with anybody, anywhere, and loved that engagement with the crowd, with that invitation to prove me wrong. That was his slogan. So I think that idea of open access is very important, but absolutely people will not be allowed to carry guns into the arena. You can be sure of that.
Sarah, let's move on to the Pentagon. A rather odd statement, which I've read a few times, and I'm just not quite sure if I've understood it correctly. Am I right in saying that they've warned journalists that they could lose access to the building if they disclose any unauthorized information? So are they effectively saying to journalists, you can only report on stuff that we authorize you to report on?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
No, we haven't actually seen that. I think you've read it correctly, Alexis. We haven't seen how this plays out yet. So at the moment, I can only speculate as to its impact. But imagine this, if you're a Pentagon reporter, and I've been to plenty of press conferences at the Pentagon in my time, you turn up, you hear the SecDef, the Secretary of State for Defense, maybe he's called SecWar now because they've changed the name of the department to Department of War. You turn up, huge building, you listen to what the leader has to say, you take notes, etc. But you're not a stenographer. You then go and check with other sources. What's the real story behind this move? We know how journalism operates, Alexis, because we're journalists, and you have to find out where this idea came from, why it matters, etc. You can't just type down everything that the idea requires you to. And so what we don't know is what they're considering leaks. I mean, obviously, famously, there was the Pentagon Papers, a whole leak about the Vietnam War, which was a huge scoop for the Washington Post. But generally speaking, it's the people who are on the Pentagon beat that also have the most security contacts. So they also are the ones who break the big stories. So does this mean in future that if you get a big story that you haven't taken down as dictated to you by the Secretary of Defense, will you be expelled? Will you no longer have a golden ticket to the Pentagon? And that can affect your ability to know sources. Now, leaks don't often come straight from the horse's mouth on the inside. Somebody tips you off on the outside. They've got a friend who knows a friend who's told them this, who's told them that. And it's like, can you get maybe they're an ex-Pentagon person, but they can get access to something that you can't. That's, but if you put your name to that piece, does that mean you can no longer work in the Pentagon? Does it mean that pieces are going to have to be given false names, or do you have to pass stuff on to your colleagues to publish them who are, outside? So you have special reporters who don't go by your name. Will that lessen your hunger for scoops? I don't know. We just don't know how this is going to play out.
But I should think they could just ban your organisation from attending, just like they've banned Associated Press because they refused to change the name from the Gulf of America to from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. So perhaps that's the way it's going to work.
I think it would be, yes, but I think it would be very hard to ban anybody who writes anything uncomfortable about the Pentagon. I mean, the Supreme Court has been pretty compliant under Trump. I don't think it would be that compliant.
Okay.
To actually ban the organization. Can you ban the individual for publishing something the Secretary of Defense doesn't like? We don't know.
Well, we
But
don't know.
that's,
I mean,
what he said he's going to do.
I mean, Donald
So-
Trump has suggested that perhaps TV stations should lose their broadcast license if they're saying negative things about him, which is something we're going to talk about on the show a little bit later on. But Sarah, before we go, just briefly, another big piece of news: the president signed an executive order yesterday, adding $100,000 as a fee for applicants to the visa program for skilled foreign workers, which is US-based companies would have to pay to bring in skilled foreign workers. Now, with this clampdown on a very successful, we have to say, clampdown on immigration, particularly on the southern border, is this going to be welcomed by US-based companies?
No. US-based companies have been heavily reliant on the skills of, especially in the tech industry, of imported workers, particularly from the Indian subcontinent. And so this, but what it's making for these companies is a sort of marginal cost. Is it going to be more expensive to train an American worker,
Right,
or to bring in a ready for work person from the Indian subcontinent? So it's making it prohibitively difficult to train people from abroad. And I think Donald Trump is hoping that companies will therefore invest in the US. And if they do, a lot of Americans will be very pleased by this decision, because the H-1B visa is heavily used as a recruiting tool abroad instead of recruiting people at home in America. Okay. So he might be successful with that, but companies will not like it, and it will put a stop to what has been a very successful scheme for innovation. So is it good for industry in the long term? Almost certainly not.
Sarah, thank you. Sarah Baxter there, Director of the Marie Colvin Center for International Reporting, giving us a bit of a roundup of what's happening across the pond.